Hello guys and girls, my name is still Dana Moravska. This is my YouTube channel Dana Tells Tales, and in today's video I'm gonna present you the second part of my top 20 classic books each person in my opinion should read in his or her life. As you can see, my background has changed. That's because we are moving a lot these days, but nevertheless I'll try to make a new video each Thursday. In order to find the first part of this video, go to the description below, and while looking for a link, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and put a thumb up if you like it. And now let's move on to our list. The 11th book of our list is a novel written by French author Marcel Proust and called In Search of Lost Time. Considered to be Proust's most prominent work, In Search of Lost Time is known for its length, as consists of 7 volumes and 4,000 pages in total. But don't be scared, of course you can, but don't have to read the whole novel in all 7 volumes. The most infamous scene of Proust's magnum opus, so-called episode of Madeleine, occurs early in the first volume, and the main theme of involuntary memory that randomly brings back the narrator into his childhood can be caught after reading first 2 volumes. Acclaimed as one of the greatest pieces of literature of the 20th century, In Search of Lost Time is in the 65th place in Newsweek's top 100 books and became a source for many references in pop culture. This book will play a major role in movie adaptation of the last book of this list, so don't miss the end of this video. The next classic book is Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. This short novel was written by a Czech writer in 1915 and tells the story of a salesman, Gregor Zamza, who wakes one morning and finds himself inexplicably transformed into a huge insect struggling to adjust to a new condition. Unlike the Proust's novel, The Metamorphosis has only about 50-60 pages, but such a small number doesn't prevent this short novel to be one of the greatest examples of European existentialism literature. Gregor's obligations to his family makes him do irrational choices, and his way of life asks readers plenty of questions about our wishes and needs, both real and imposed by a society. Colombian novelist and journalist Gabriel Garcia Marquez once noted that reading Kafka's The Metamorphosis showed him that it was possible to write in a different way. So if you want to get acknowledged with how the European literature of the early 20th century was developing, Kafka's The Metamorphosis just has to be in your to-read list. The next book in our top 20 list is a modernist novel written by Irish writer James Joyce and called Ulysses. If you were attentively watching the first part of this video, you remember that while talking about Homer's Odyssey, I mentioned that it became a reference for one of the following books in our list. And here we are! Ulysses is highly considered to be one huge analogy to Homer's Odyssey. Many of the characters' names are variations and interpretations of ancient Greek names, and the structure of narration highly reminds the adventures of Odyssey. The difference is in time frames. While Joyce's novel develops during one ordinary day in the 20th century Dublin, Homer's Odyssey develops during 10 years of Trojan War. Generally, Ulysses is highly elusive and also imitates the styles of different periods of English literature. The novel is also well known for its stream of conscious technique and experimental prose, and if you are scared of 700 pages, you can enjoy listening to the podcast called Joyce on Bloomsday or BBC Radio for 9-part adaptation dramatized by Robin Brooks. The next classic book I recommend you to read is The Great Gatsby by Francis Scott Fitzgerald. This novel's main character is a mysterious millionaire, J. Gatsby, followed by his passionate obsession with former debutante Daisy Buchanan. Jay arranges dazzling parties in his luxurious mansion in order to make Daisy love him again. This dramatic love story combined with the detailed description of the life of early 20s will capture your heart from its first pages. Considered to be Fitzgerald's magnum opus, The Great Gatsby explores the theme of decadence, idealism, resistance to change, social upheavals and excess, creating the portrait of the roaring 20s and reinterpreting the concept of the American dream. And its latest 2013 movie adaptation starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire will organically complement your perception of the novel. Our next book is, in my opinion, the world's most famous dystopia, 1984, by George Orwell. Written in 1949, this novel tells us about the nearest imaginary future when much of the world has fallen a victim of perpetual war, omnipresent government surveillance, historical negationism, and propaganda. Together with main hero Winston Smith, we observe how the government and the party control the way people think and behave with their totalitarian rules and by implementing the thought police in order to persecute individuality and independent thinking. Big Brother, the leader of the party, enjoys the cult of personality even though he may not exist. Winston Smith, on the other hand, secretly hates the party and dreams of the rebellion. Being one of the world's greatest dystopian novels, 1984 raises questions of truth and facts within politics, manipulation and propaganda, and how the individual can oppose the system. Being included by the Time magazine into 100 greatest books written on English language, 1984 became a world's classic and is surely worth to read. The next book in our list is The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. It is the only non-fiction book in our list, but it is crucial to read in order to understand the feminist literature, because this book became the starting point for the second wave of feminism. In this book, the author asks a question, what is woman? And comes to the conclusion that woman throughout the history was always perceived as the other. Simone de Beauvoir tries to understand why the woman's situation even today prevents her from exploring the world's basic problems and why the world, even now in most of the spheres, is ruled by men. In 1949, the first French publication of The Second Sex was sold around 22,000 copies in a week, and being translated into more than 40 languages, this book became a real Bible for all proactive women in the middle 90s. So if you want to get a knowledge of how the women's literature was gaining its own voice, you just have to read The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. The next book I recommend you to read is a play written by Irish playwright and novelist Samuel Beckett and called Waiting for Godot. The plot of the play isn't as simple and plain as in the previous books from the list. Two main characters, Vladimir and Estragon, are engaged in a variety of different discussions and encounters while waiting for Godot, who never arrives. Their dialogues may seem senseless and primitive, but only from the first sight. Waiting for Godot is one of the most representable plays of the theater of absurd, and its weirdness is no more than the peculiarity of its genre. Throughout Waiting for Godot, you may encounter religious, classical, psychological, philosophical, autobiographical, especially wartime references. So, if you are ready to start your discovery of the theater of absurd plays, Waiting for Godot is the best starting point. Written only 70 years ago, our next book has quickly become one of the world's classic fantasy sagas of all time. And of course, I'm talking about The Lord of the Rings by John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. A story of one little brave hobbit and his companions who are aimed to destroy the world's most powerful artifact has inspired many readers from all around the world. Despite giving exciting adventurous plot of a classic fairy tale, The Lord of the Rings developed as a personal exploration by Tolkien of his interest in philology, Germanic mythology and religion, especially Catholicism. This novel became one of the best-selling novels ever written, with more than 150 million copies sold, and is considered to have had a great effect on modern fantasy. The impact of Tolkien's works is such that the words Tolkienian and Tolkienesque has been recorded into Oxford English Dictionary. The enduring popularity of The Lord of the Rings has led to numerous references in pop culture, finding of many societies by fans of Tolkien and his works, and publications of different books about Tolkien and his literature. Of course, the greatest interpretation of The Lord of the Rings is its movie adaptation in 3 parts directed by Peter Jackson. So, if you haven't read The Lord of the Rings yet, just go and do this right now and you won't regret. Our 19th book is novel by William Golding, Lord of Flies. It tells a story about a group of the boys who were sent to an inhabited island in order to save themselves from war. Throughout the novel, we observe how the kids try to govern themselves and how dramatical changes affect their minds and behavior. At an allegorical level, the central theme is conflicting human impulses towards civilization and social organization, living by rules, peacefully and in harmony, and toward a will to power. Another raised questions are the tension between groupthink and individuality, between rational and irrational reactions, and between morality and immorality. In 2003, Lord of Flies was listed at number 70 at BBC's The Big Read poll, and in 2005, the Time magazine included it into its 100 best English language novels. Time also included the book in its 100 best young adult books of all time. And our last but not the least is Jack Kerouac's On the Road. Based on the travels by Kerouac and his friends across the United States, the novel is considered a defining work of a post-war beat-and counterculture generation, with its protagonists living life against a backdrop of jazz, poetry, and drug use. The novel contains 5 parts, 3 of which describe the road trip of the reader and his friend Dean Moriarty. The story marks the specific era of jazz history and is largely autobiographical. In the most of the characters, we recognize the major figures of the Beat generation, such as Neil Cassidy, Allen Ginsberg, William Burroughs, Jack Kerouac, and the members of his family. On the Road became a hymn for youth, freedom, and adventures, and its atmosphere of carelessness and free-spirited inspiration will surely send you far away from your home and experience a fascinating road trip together with its heroes. The novel has a 2012 movie adaptation starring Kristen Stewart, Viggo Mortensen, and Kirsten Dunst. And by the way, In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust is considered as a connecting element between film's 3 main protagonists, Soul Paradise, Dean Moriarty, and Mary Lou. It was top 20 classic books each person should read in his or her life. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell in order not to miss new videos, and please write in the comments below which lists would you like to see in my future videos. My name's Dana Murawska, and I hope to see all of you very soon on my channel.